Hi, I'm Ellie. I am a maternity nurse and I'm also a mother of three children who are now 4, 6 and 8. I would like to share with you some of my maternity nurse tips that I think are useful in the first few days and the first few weeks and going forward with your new baby. The first thing I'd like to cover is the important topic of bonding with your baby. Obviously, when you have your baby, you'll have a strong instinct to want to be with your baby and cuddle your baby. Sometimes, if you've had a traumatic birth or there's been some separation between giving birth and then seeing your baby again, it can be difficult to sort of really feel bonded with your baby. I definitely felt that after my second baby. I had an emergency section and I lost a lot of blood and I felt quite disconnected with my baby. I was sort of in and out of consciousness, so there's a big difference between my bond immediately with my first child and then my second child. So here are some tips to do with how to really help that bond, and it's really good for your partner to do some of these things as well. So here's your baby. A skin-to-skin contact is really important for both you and the baby. So as much as you can, especially in the first few days, just strip off your top half and have your baby as close to you as you can. Obviously the baby needs to be warm, so the best thing to do is wrap a blanket around you both. The baby's head, this baby's head doesn't seem to turn, but the baby's head needs to turn so they can obviously breathe, and just have something around both of you. This is really good for the baby because they feel your heartbeat, they hear your heartbeat, they can smell you. It's really good to stimulate your milk, and it's also almost like an extension of you. So you're both sort of there together, skin to skin. Instead of them being inside you as a bump, they're on the outside as a bump. So this is one of the most basic but very effective ways to bond with your baby. Now, skin to skin can take on lots of different sort of forms. So you can lie in bed, sitting up, skin to skin. Another really nice thing that I used to do with my children was have a bath with the baby. So pour quite a deep bath, warm enough for you to sit in comfortably, but obviously not hot. It has got to be warm enough, otherwise the baby will also get cold. And you basically just lie in the bath with your baby on your chest again, the head turned, and the water just needs to come up to his or her bottom. You need to get a warm flannel and lay it over the top of them to again encourage warmth, and so they're happier there. This is a really relaxing way to have skin to skin. It's a great way to prepare for your evening feed. You're both relaxed again, they feel your heartbeat, and dads can also do this. So if you need a bit of time, which of course you will, then dads can also have a bath with the baby. Just make sure the door is closed on the bathroom so that it's warm. Make sure you've got everything ready before you have the bath, so put the towel on the radiator so that it's warm, have your nappy ready and your vest and your baby grow, so that everything's ready. So as soon as you're out the bath and the baby starts crying, you can put them down, wrap them up and get them all comfortable again. Another really lovely way to bond with your baby is to do a lying down feed. So this is great for milk stimulation. It's a really relaxing way to feed. I'll just demonstrate that now. This is why I'm sort of doing it on my bed so you can see. So if you just lie on your side, and your baby is going to also lie on its side and just feed facing you, head, shoulders and hips all in a line. back straight, there's no twisting, so they're not twisting their head is all straight, so they're not lying on their back and twisting their head, they're actually turning to you. So lying in bed and feeding can be a really lovely experience. You're relaxed, your body is relaxed, your baby is relaxed, you don't even need to hold your baby. Sometimes I used to roll a little towel here just to support, but basically everything is relaxed, and you're both lying down skin to skin. Again, try and strip off as much as you can your top half so that it is really skin to skin. I wouldn't, well, it's guidelines to not fall asleep with your baby on you or sitting in a chair or on a sofa, because that carries infant death risk. So really try not to fall asleep with your baby on you. It also creates not great habits when you want your baby to sleep on their own in the cot. So as much skin to skin is great for bonding, but when your baby is ready to sleep, try as much as you can to put them down in the Moses basket or in the cot, and that encourages self-settling and gives you a little bit of independence. Obviously all babies are different. Some babies settle really well on their own, some don't so much, but I might do another video about that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was swaddling. So I am a big advocate of swaddling. Swaddling provides your baby with a huge amount of security. If you think about when they're in the womb, they're all tucked in, especially at the end, they're tight, their arms are all tucked in, they can feel that sort of restricted movement around their whole body. So when they're out and suddenly they're in the world and they're flailing around, I don't know if you've seen the sort of the shock reflex on a baby, and it can just be a little bit scary sometimes for the baby, and that's why they like to be held, because they feel secure. So swaddling is a great solution to babies who are crying a little bit more and you're not really sure why, or they won't settle. It's also a really great way to wash your baby's head. I'll show you that in a second. And also, if you have a real wriggly baby when you're feeding, swaddling is another great way just to calm them down, reassure them that they are secure, so they can just focus on the feeding. So whatever blanket you use is fine. I've got a giant muslin here. Right, what I'm going to do is lay the blanket out, and you're just going to put your baby so that her ears just touch the top of the blanket, and that's when you know it's high enough. So it's all in line, runs along her ears. You're going to put her arms flat by her side, and you're going to wrap one side across. So it comes directly under her ears, across her body and across the other side, and you're going to wrap that underneath her bottom. So you might need to lift them and twist them a little under her bottom and make it all nice and flat again. And then you're going to keep this arm flat and wrap the other side. Again, you're going to flick that underneath her bottom. So your baby is now like a little worm without any arms, and all this is free, everything's wrapped under, and she's now good to either feed without her arms getting in the way and scratching at you. It's also a really good way if you want to wash some of the crust and gunk off their heads. You put them in a swaddle, you get a warm bowl of water, and you can literally just wash their head either with your hand or a flannel, because sometimes after the birth they have a bit of the vernix and a bit of blood and things like that, so it's just quite nice, you know, after a week or something, just to gently wash that off But if they don't have their arms sort of flailing around and things, it's just easier for you, and it also sort of lets them know that this is an okay thing to do, and they're, you know, secure and safe. So that's quite a nice thing to do. Right, so I just want to briefly touch on a few feeding tips. So babies really differ with feeding, and feeding is one of the major sort of things that I used to deal with as a maternity nurse. So some babies are born and they instantly are starving, hungry, and they are raring to go, and they latch really easily, and that's just it for them, which is a really lucky thing. A lot of women struggle with breastfeeding. A lot of babies struggle with breastfeeding, and I will say that a lot of it is technique. Okay, so a lot of it is to do with the latch that your baby is able to achieve. There are a few things that you can do to help that, and some of it is up to your baby. So I would say my top tips for successful breastfeeding experience with your baby would be to wake them regularly for feeds. Okay, so feeding on demand is great. I would definitely feed on demand for the first few weeks. This is basically a way that your baby will call your milk in. So it's basically as much contact with your nipple and your milk your baby has, the more milk you will produce. So the more you put your baby to your breast, the more milk you will produce. And this is really important in the first few days and the first few weeks with your baby. So whenever your baby wakes and is crying, put her to the breast. Whenever your baby has been asleep for 3 hours and you feel like, you know, they had a really good feed 3 hours ago, I would then strip your baby off, change your baby's nappy, rouse your baby, and then put her to the breast. Because the thing is, people are always really happy when their baby is asleep, and in some respects that is great. But in the first few days and the first few weeks, your baby needs milk to develop, to grow, to bring your milk in, to thrive, to get rid of jaundice, to have the energy. It needs the calories. Your baby needs the calories to be awake. So the fewer calories it has, the sleepier it will become. So it's really important to wake your baby 3 hourly in the first few days, definitely, and potentially weeks going forward, depending on you know how your baby is. And you need to sort of speak to your midwife or your health visitor about that, because sleepy babies is a really big thing. And also, the more you feed in the day, the more likely they will go longer stretches at night. So cluster feeding, especially in the evening, is a great idea. Cluster feeding is when you have lots of little feeds all in a row. They get nice and full, they get tired because it's, you know, quite, they burn off a lot of energy. Feeding, it's hard work. So the more they feed, the better they should sleep in the evening. So I think the other thing I would just say about getting your baby interested in breastfeeding, especially if your baby is sleepy or reluctant to feed, is do lots of skin to skin. Even when you're not meant to be feeding or when your baby doesn't seem hungry, it will stimulate your milk. Squeeze out some of the milk onto your nipple and let your baby be close to your nipple, smell the milk. This is all about their instinct, and it will encourage them to want to feed. And that's it, really. Well, that's not it. Feeding is a massive issue, but these were my sort of top tips to start with I hope they're helpful. I really look forward to hearing from some of you if you need extra support, and I would definitely be happy to talk to anybody who needs some advice or wants to go into anything further that I've touched on. The only one other thing I would say is buy yourself a sling. For your newborn, get a wrap material sling, for many reasons, but if for nothing else, you can strap your baby to your partner and it will give you half an hour in the shower or give you a nap, and your partner can walk around with your baby and they will feel secure. It's great for bonding, and it's just a really, really close thing to experience for your partner, and give you some time as well. So definitely go to a sling library when you can, after coronavirus, or look online, do your research. But wrap slings are great for newborns, and then you can progress on to different slings after that. Yeah, I hope you're all well and healthy, and enjoy your babies.